What is my favourite Total War content, whether a full game or a DLC? This is the question put to me by the CA gods recently, which I aim to answer right here, right now. And while I could give you my personal obvious answers, like the first Total War I ever played, being Shogun 2, that one always sticks with me. My favourite historical title, Rome 2, I could easily choose that one. And of course, the first Total War Warhammer is a big one for me, as it's the game that really brought this channel to life and allows me to do what I'm doing today. So naturally, I've chosen something relating to Total War Warhammer, but it's actually one of the DLCs which I think made a big difference, especially for me. It is none other than the King and the Warlord DLC for Warhammer 1, which brought Skarsnik and Belegar to the table. Now before I get into why I've chosen this DLC, a big fist bump to CA for sponsoring this video and helping get the channel to where it is today. Now the King and the Warlord was released in the same year as Total War Warhammer itself, 2016, and was one of the first DLCs for the game after the Grim and the Grave, which was the Empire and Vampire Counts new units DLC. This one was the same thing but just for Greenskins and Dwarfs. Now for anyone that knows this channel well enough, you'll know that I'm green to the core. I am a Greenskins player, I love rolling out the green tide and just absolutely blitzing through my enemies. And I've loved the Greenskins because they're kind of something I can relate to in a way. They're out there just looking for a good fight. They're not fussed about winning or losing necessarily, it's just about having a good scrap. Not too many worries about diplomacy or kingdom management, which is perfect for me because if you've ever watched me play a campaign, you'll know that I don't care too much for that kind of stuff. I'm just looking for those good fights, and that's what I relate to in games. Looking for those adrenaline-fueled moments of greatness, whether I win or lose. Now, with all that being said though, the Greenskins are obviously known for being a bit dumb, not really using many strategies or tactics, which is something I really do enjoy, strategy and tactics. So I'm kind of un-Greenskins-like in that way, but luckily with Total War Warhammer I get to do that anyway because it's required if you want to win the game. You've got to use some strategies and tactics to pull things off. And the Greenskins army is quite a versatile one. You can go orc heavy and be very smashy, you can bring lots of gobbos or just gobbos, you can bring lots of monsters. There's different ways to play the Greenskins which can catch your opponent out, which is part of what makes them so fun to play for me. So coming back to the King and the Warlord DLC, it brought a whole bunch of new Greenskins units that some of which made a big difference to how you played the Green Boys, such as the Nasty Skulkers, honestly one of the biggest game changers to the Greenskins because of their smoke bomb. Their ability to trap a unit and to stop it getting away. I can't tell you how many lords I've killed catching people out with the smoke bomb, not to mention cheap armor piercing damage and stalk. And then you've got the Crimson Killers, the strongest melee infantry in the game in a straight up melee fight, and the only infantry in the game with splash attacks. So they're incredibly unique for those two reasons first of all, and they came with this DLC. And another unit that is pretty much seen in every Greenskins army nowadays, the 8-Peak Loonies. These are unbreakable goblins with a silver shield and can send their fanatics flying into the enemy. A very powerful unit for a fantastic price. They can do a lot of work, especially being unbreakable. They will just keep coming after their enemies. It also brought Squigs and Squig Hoppers to the Greenskins party. Poisonous armor piercing cavalry, very fast as well. They made it viable to bring a Gobbos only Greenskins army, which is pretty fun with all the Vanguard deployment and stuff. So a pretty big game changer unit because it did allow for that different kind of playstyle more so than it did before. And a unit that I really like that I bring in most of my Greenskins armies, the Mangy Marauders. These are armor piercing skirmish cavs, which is something of a rarity for a lot of factions. So these are nice for just keeping some constant pressure and constant damage on an enemy, no matter what kind of enemy it is. Even if it's got loads of armor, if it's a large monster, a cavalry, and infantry, they can do some work on it. And of course, the Arachnarok Queen, the Regiment of Renown Arachnarok Spider. She can spawn up the hatchling, she's very powerful, she is an absolute monster, obviously. So what's great about it is that a lot of these units were game changers for the Greenskins and allowed you to play the faction in a different way. And of course, let's not forget the Dwarfs and all of their new units. You had Clan Angrand with their 4 ghostly heroes, which were very powerful unless the enemy had some magic, then they might not be so good, but otherwise they were absolute tanks and difficult to take down. I still have nightmares of trying to kill King Lon Ironhammer. And then we had the Dragonback Slayers. These are just slayers which can give an enemy weakness to fire and it slows them down, making them even more effective at their anti-large job. A fun unit that I do like to use as the Dwarfs. And similar to the Nasty Skulkers, they can trap enemies with that speed reduction to help you get some extra damage on them. And then for a big game changer for the Dwarfs, the Rangers, or the Bugman's Rangers. These are the first light infantry unit for the Dwarfs. They only had 40 armor. They could run pretty quick at like 40 speed, they had Vanguard deployment and Stalk, they could do something different and brought new strategies and tactics for the Dwarfs to employ, much like the Nasty Skulkers or Squig Hoppers. King and the Warlord also brought another incredibly strong infantry, the Peak Gate Guard. These are a regiment of renowned hammerers, they're anti-infantry, armor piercing, they've got armor sundering, I think they have magical attacks as well. They are one of the strongest melee infantries in the game. But that isn't all. While we've got the Crimson Killers in this DLC, one of the strongest melee infantries in the game, we've also got the other strongest melee infantry in the game, the Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. The two strongest melee infantries to this day in Total War Warhammer 2 are in this DLC. And while the Norgrimlings boys aren't great damage dealers and don't put out damage quickly, they will simply outlast everyone else. They'll blow them to bits with their blasting charges first, and then simply grind them down until the enemy can't fight anymore. It's kind of the complete opposite approach to the Crimson Killers, so you've got the two strongest units, both with different approaches. One likes to smash you as quick as possible with lots of damage, the Crimson Killers, and one will simply outlast you until you can't fight anymore, the Norgrimlings boys. And that's just a handful of the units for both factions from the King and the Warlord DLC. Either way, it brought new elements to both the Greenskins and Dwarfs and allowed some new different tactics to be used. So, new units brought improvements to the Greenskins and Dwarfs armies in battle. But there's still more titles for this DLC to claim. Once again, to this day, the King and the Warlord DLC can claim that it has two of the hardest campaigns in both Total War Warhammer 1 and 2. The Skarsnik campaign put you in a tough spot near the Empire, forcing you to work your way all the way down to Karak 8 Peaks, which was a long old trek away, having to fight lots of dwarfs mainly, which anyone who's ever played any Total War Warhammer campaign will know, fighting dwarfs is a goddamn pain in the arse, especially when you're gobbos who don't have much hope in hell of outlasting dwarfs. Or how about Belegar's campaign as Clan Angrand, equally as tough, upkeep plus 50% on all units until you take Karak 8 Peaks, which is a little bit closer than it is for Skarsnik, but still a long old trek away. And there's a lot of Greenskins factions that want to give you trouble before you even get there. And then you've got to worry about Queek nowadays trying to take 8 Peaks as well, so overall just a bit of a nightmare. Two of the hardest campaigns that came with the King and the Warlord DLC. Maybe not the hardest campaigns in the game, but definitely two tough ones. What do you think is the hardest campaign? Out of curiosity, you people probably play more campaigns than I do. Let me know what you think is the hardest. But for those reasons, I think that this is probably my favourite DLC, as it brings a lot of challenges and a lot of new units to one of my favourite factions in Total War Warhammer. Not to mention it holds the titles of two of the strongest melee infantries and two of the hardest campaigns. Definitely a DLC that's worth having if you really want to get into Total War Warhammer. Many people will have it already, it's been out for 4 years, but if you don't, give it a look. Also, do let me know what your favourite faction is and why. I'm always curious why some people like the Lizardmen, why some people like the Dark Elves, why some people like the Skaven. What is it that attracts you to your favourite faction? I told you mine was the Greenskins, and why? Let me know yours below, I'm curious. But otherwise, there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this, thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.